Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare. Gopi Jana Ballava Giribaradhare. Gopi Jana Ballava Giribaradhare. Yashodanandana Raja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Raja Janaranjana. Yamunatira Vanachare. Yamunatira Vanachare. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare. Gopi Jana Ballava Giribaradhare. Gopi Jana Ballava Giribaradhare. Yashodanandana Raja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Raja Janaranjana. Yamunatira Vanachare. Yamunatira Vanachare. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare. Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada. Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jai Vishnavad, Paramahansa, Parivrajakcharis, Tadasasi Srimad. His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki. ISKCON Samstapakacharya, Srila Prabhupada Ki. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki. Shri Shri Radha Radhanath Ki. Shri Giri Govardhan Ki. Shri Caitanya Mahaprabhu Ki. Sankirtan Yagya Ki. Go Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 23. Maharaj Prithu's going back home. Verse 9. Sanat Kumaro Bhagavan Yad Ahadyatmikam Param Yogam Tenaiva Purusham Abhajat Purusharshaba Sanat Kumaro Bhagavan Yad Ahadyatmikam Param Yogam Tenaiva Purusham Abhajat Purusharshaba Sanat Kumara Bhagavan Yad Ahadyatmikam Param Yogam Tenaiva Purusham Abhajat Purusharshaba Sanat Kumara Bhagavan Yad Ahadyatmikam Param Yogam Tenaiva Purusham Abhajat Purusharshaba. Ladies? Sanat Kumara, Bhagavan, most powerful, Yat, that which, Aha, said, Adhyatmikam, spiritual advancement of life, Param, ultimate, Yogam, mysticism, Tena, by that, Eva, certainly, Purusham, the Supreme Person, Abhajat, worshipped, Purusha Rishabha, the best of human beings. Translation: thus, the best among human beings, Maharaj Prithu, followed that path of spiritual advancement which was advised by Sanat Kumar. That is to say, he worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In this verse, it is clearly said that Maharaj Prithu, practicing the pranayama yoga system, engaged in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as advised by the saint Sanat Kumara. In this verse, the words Purusham Abhajat Purusharshaba are significant. Purusharshaba refers to Maharaj Prithu, the best amongst human beings, and Purusham refers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The conclusion is that the best man amongst all men engages in the service of the Supreme Person. One Purusha is worshipable, and the other Purusha is the worshipper. When the Purusha who worships, the living entity, thinks of becoming one with the Supreme Person, he simply becomes bewildered and falls into the darkness of ignorance. As stated by Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 12, all living entities assembled in the battlefield, as well as Krishna himself, were also present in the past as individuals, and would continue to be present in the future as individuals also. Therefore, the two Purushas, the living entity and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, never lose their respective identities. Actually, one who is self-realized engages himself in the service of the Lord perpetually, both in this life and in the next. Indeed, for devotees, there is no difference between this life and the next. In this life, a neophyte devotee is trained to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and in the next life, he approaches that Supreme Person in Vaikuntha and renders the same devotional service. Even for the neophyte devotee, devotional service is considered Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. Bhagavad Gita chapter 14, verse 26. Devotional service to the Lord is never considered a material activity. Since he is acting on the Brahmabhuta platform, a devotee is already liberated. He therefore has no need to practice any other type of yoga in order to approach the Brahmabhuta stage. Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th Canto, chapter 30, verse 20. If the devotee adheres strictly to the orders of the spiritual master, follows the rules and regulations, and chants the Hare Krishna mantra, it should be concluded that he is already at the Brahmabhuta stage, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita chapter 14, verse 26. Mam chiyo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityaitam brahmabhuya kalpate. One who's engaged in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Sanat Kumaro Bhagavan Yadahad Yatmakam Param Yogam Tenaiva Purusham Abhajat Purusha Shaba. Thus the best amongst human beings, Maharaj Prithu, followed that path of spiritual advancement which was advised by Sanat Kumara. That is to say, he worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Niravishesha Shunyavadi Paschitya Deshatarane Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Sri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Yes, so, continuing the description of Maharaj Prithu in the process of going back home, back to Godhead, and the different activities that he engaged at different stages in that process, or at least different things are being emphasized as he goes step by step through the process. Because Krishna consciousness, after all, it is a step-by-step process. It's not just, well, generally at least, it's not just like a sudden jump from zero to just back to the spiritual world, just on the spot. Such things, not that it cannot happen, not that it does never happen, but it's very rare. Yes, it's very rare. Rather, it's a step-by-step process, and generally we see that amongst ourselves as individuals, and as an individual oneself, and then observing the other devotees and how they progress. At least generally it is like that. Step by step the devotees go back to Godhead, and step by step the devotees work on the different activities which they engage in. But as Prabhupada says here, that Prabhupada says here, yes, right. Actually, one who is self-realized engages himself in the service of the Lord perpetually, both in this life and in the next. So for the devotee, there's no real difference, at least the advanced devotee. there's no real difference between this life and the next. For us, well, wait and see. And we will find out. Particularly those of us who are a bit older, but you never know, could be anyone at any time. We'll find out if we really do, if it really is like a continuum or something else. But that's what Srila Prabhupada is saying here, and certainly for the advanced devotees it's like that. So, in this life we're trained, and in the next life, Krishna being merciful and us doing our very, very best, we can approach the Lord in the spiritual world, and Prabhupada says, render the same devotional service. So it depends what service, but all services that are going on here are going on there at least. Maybe some here are like reflections, but they may also literally be the services which are going on in the spiritual world. I mean, some of the more unusual ones. Maybe in Goloka Vrindavan, Mataji Madhurya Kadamini will have the control in her hand and be, scrolling. Don't think that they are backward in the spiritual world. Don't think that they don't have, if they want, paraphernalia even much more advanced than our electronics, etc. But Prabhupada says the same devotional service. Of course, if it's something like deity worship, like cooking for Krishna, like cleaning for Krishna, like talking about Krishna, like singing, chanting Hare Krishna, and various others, then one may find oneself in the spiritual world literally doing exactly the same thing. And even manipulating the verses one way or another. They may be able to just do it with the mind because, our manipulation through electronics is just a gross way of what people who are more advanced, what they do just with their minds. They just think, okay, 4th Canto, chapter 23, verse 9, and there it is. Seriously. Yeah, yes, because they're, well, even in higher material planets, it's like that. Like we understand, and Prabhupada talks about it a bit, that there is mantra, then there is tantra, and then there is yantra. These are 3 ways of manipulating matter in effectively the same ways. In fact, I was reading just not long ago, a matter of few weeks at the most, a few weeks ago, how back in perhaps Satya Yuga, I think it was we were in Botswana, and there was mention of how in Satya Yuga doctors could perform operations just with mantra, and they would not have to cut people's bodies open and physically do whatever they do to remove an organ or change an organ, alter an organ. They would just chant mantras, and without any cutting, the person's internal workings would change and be corrected. Yes, this is when mantra was really predominant, just in general in life. But then when things deteriorated to some degree, then the process changed. The ability to do these things by mantra was lost. And then came tantra. Tantra particularly refers to a process of worship of a deity, like a formal ritual even, that sort of thing. So by some process of worship of perhaps Dhanvantari or whoever it may be, because you get all these demigods in charge of different medical functions. Like if you've been, in Hinduism, those of you from Hindu backgrounds, you must have seen it, I assume you would have. But Shri Shri Radha Radhanath Shri Giri Govardhan Shri Caitanya Mahaprabhu Ki Jai. If you've been to, what's it called now? Hariha Kshetra in the Navadvip Mandal area. It's part of the Navadvip Parikrama. So on the altar there, of course, is Hari Hara, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead as half Vishnu and half Lord Shiva. And there's a few other Vishnu Tattva type deities, but then there's one other deity. Who of you have been to Hariha, actually? Okay, you've been, yeah. So Hariha, on the altar there, is also Shitala. Shitala, I think it's Shitala, who is a demigoddess who presides over, would you believe, smallpox. Yes. And the people come and do Shitala Puja whenever it may be. And the idea is that people who have or might get smallpox, then the situation is corrected. And either the smallpox goes away or they don't get it, but it's something like that. And another one I saw, yes, very famous, Shani Dev. Shani Dev. In Vraj Mandala, just literally across the road, it's a bit of a distance, like a kilometer or two, is the Shani Dev, not just temple, but complex. And all these temples, and the main temple is of Shani Dev, and he's worshipped on Saturdays. And he's also got something to do with curing some diseases or doing something. I forget the details. Haven't been there for a while. What does he do? Anyway, Saturday. Sorry? Offer oil. All right, anyway. So there's a whole big setup there. And now there's a whole big deity of Shanidev, like, I don't know, several meters tall. Yes. So, but anyway, there in Harihar, there is, I think it's Shitala. Is that her name? Shitala? Deals with smallpox? I think it's Shitala. Yes, so they would worship if you got smallpox, which, apparently is really a very nasty disease and often fatal. So this is what they do. They would do tantra, they do worship of that deity. And generally in those days, when that was the process, it would work very nicely. And various other deities are there for various other diseases, physical conditions, and there you go. So you get, because every function of the body, the hair growing out of our heads, the hair growing on our bodies, our digestion, and our breathing, all these functions, there are demigods in charge of them and actually performing, seeing that those functions they actually take place. So, but anyway, the point here that Prabhupada makes is when you go back to Godhead, you may render the same devotional service, like book distribution. Book distribution, of course, is very dear to Srila Prabhupada, extremely dear to Srila Prabhupada, and he encouraged it practically in the strongest terms possible. So if you happen to be a book distributor, I don't know if any of you are so much, but if you are, you can distribute books in Goloka Vrindavan. And yes, same thing. It's actually the same thing. But the difference is, at least one of the big differences, maybe the main difference, is in Goloka Vrindavan, everyone takes a book. We used to have, when I was doing book distribution, on a daily basis, all day, we used to have competitions just amongst we were like a group of 4 of us traveling around, and we'd all take up different positions on the main street, and we would have competitions, 1st to 5. And so we'd keep track. Okay, that person took 1, so that's 1. Next person took another 1, so that's 2. Who can be the 1st to 5? And sometimes we would have sort of like a competition. How many books can you do in a row? And the most, I remember distributing 10 books in a row a number of times. Every single person, one after the other, they all take a book. But in Goloka Vrindavan, it's just that everybody takes a book, and that's it. Even if everybody has the book, even if everybody has 10 copies already of the same book, they take another one. Why not? It's all transcendental. And maybe in the houses they have multiple sets of Srimad Bhagavatam and so on like that. Yes, may sound a little amusing or even a little silly, but it's not. It's very real. It's so real. Like in Goloka Vrindavan, or even when here, Srimati Radharani cooks for Krishna, and Prabhupada definitely explained that she's been cooking for Krishna since, not just, in this lifetime, maybe 50 years or 30 or 40 years something, but she's been cooking for Krishna for an unlimited period of time, not even millions of years, but more. And she has never repeated the same preparation. And I don't know, if we had a competition, how many preparations can you cook? How many would it be? Interesting question, particularly for the accomplished cooks, regular cooks. Yes, so it's quite fantastic to think about it. How could it be? But that's what they say. That's what Srila Prabhupada said. So anyway, yes. So the thing is, here, the practice of pranayam is referred to in, what was it? It was the previous verse, actually. Pranayamai sanirudha. It's one of the processes. Actually, Maharaj Prithu was performing a number of the practices. and some sort of sequence was there. It seems that pranayama came later than like sitting, as we were saying last week, sitting with the fires around you or sitting up to your neck in the cold water. So certain sequences are there. But he was engaged in devotional service, and in the course of that, he was practicing the pranayama yoga system while engaged in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as Sanat Kumar had advised, because the Kumars came to visit Maharaj Prithu just sometime not so long before. So even, there are devotees, or have been, or are devotees who recommend that in order to improve your chanting, you can do some pranayam before or during or whenever, at some point. From what I heard, someone told me before, and then the chanting sort of, in a physical sense, flows more easily. Of course, on the whole, we would regard that as Yoga Mishra Bhakti. In fact, it's specifically discussed as such. That we're really trying to do bhakti, to do devotional service to the Lord, but now we've adopted this particular practice, and even we develop, you could say, a type of dependence on it or something like that. But actually, it kind of subtly contaminates the actual mood of devotion, the mood of bhakti. So that's Yoga Mishra. That feeling, that Mishra meaning mixed, feeling that if we mix some yoga practice with our devotional service, it may improve our devotional service. This idea is there. Or there's Jnana Mishra Yoga. Interesting point that what in the previous canto, third canto mainly, there was Markandeya. Markandeya was instructing Uddhava. Markandeya, if I remember correctly, was instructing Uddhava. And because he was senior in age, but he is described as being, specifically as being, a Yoga Mishra devotee. That he's a devotee and he is advanced to some degree. He's actually Maitreya, not Markandeya. Markandeya's in the, 12th canto or thereabouts. So Maitreya is described as being a Yoga Mishra Bhakta. Although, having said that, he's still very advanced, and he's advanced enough to instruct someone like Uddhava, who is himself very advanced, actually. So Jnana Mishra, he's got some attachment to knowledge, and not simply knowledge about Krishna, but some knowledge about some sort of secondary things which can have a place, you can find a place for them in devotional service, but actually they're not really exactly part of pure devotional service. In fact, the question arises in Bhagavad Gita, according to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in the 10th chapter, where Lord Krishna explains different features of the universal form. He explains them. How certain features of the universal form, they're actually aspects of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then at the beginning of the 11th chapter, Arjuna says, well, can you show me that? And so Krishna shows the universal form. But according to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, when Krishna in the 10th chapter gets into this, and it's there in the 7th chapter also, I'm rasoham apsu konteya prabhasmi shashi shurayo pranava sarva vedesho shabdeke porusham nrishu. I'm the taste of water, I'm the light of the sun and moon, I'm the syllable Om in the Vedic mantras. I am, the sound in ether and ability in man. Yes, so, according to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Arjuna complains or just questions that, look, this is Gyan. This is Gyan. And it's not exactly pure devotional service, which you've just said that I really need to practice and you're going to instruct me in. So what's going on? And according to our Acharya, Lord Krishna responds that this knowledge is knowledge about Krishna himself. And it is not just Gyan in the sort of, questionable sense of impersonal knowledge or maybe irrelevant material knowledge which is irrelevant to devotional service. But actually this knowledge encourages and supports and increases devotion. When you start appreciating Krishna in these ways, Krishna says, that it actually helps you progress in your devotional service. And if you sort of can sort of meditate on those descriptions sometimes, they will also strengthen your devotional service and your consciousness in devotional service. So here in the purport, Srila Prabhupada particularly refers to the words Purusham Abhajat Purusharshaba. Yes, there are two Purushas being referred to here. The term Purusha, just in Sanskrit, means a person, or even particularly a male person, but even just a person. But then so therefore it's applied to human beings. In fact, maybe someday we'll show you the slideshow of Radhakund Shamakund. Interesting and nice. And in that slideshow, when we're not Radhakund, sorry. It's the 7 old deities of Vrindavan. So when we talk about Govinda, Radha Govinda, who were initially in Vrindavan, but now they're in Jaipur. So we go to Jaipur and we visit the temple, and one of the photos, it's in the temple room, back a little bit towards the back of the temple room where the altar is. The altar is closed, but that's in front of us. And where the devotees stand during the darshan is in front of us. And there are 2 signs in Hindi. One is for ladies Mahili. You know your Mahili. You know that. Anyway, according to that sign you are. And for men, we're looking from the back towards the altar. So that means ladies are on the right. And then the men, it says, what does it say? Purusha. The Purushas go on the left. Well, we're doing the right thing here, aren't we? Because that's how we do it. I don't know how it ended up like that, but I don't think it was based on the Govindaji temple. But yeah, it's just a common term used in, what to speak of Sanskrit, but Hindi to mean men or a man. It's the common term. So it's used like that. Or in the classic sense, more often than not, it's used to refer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that's the case here. But it's for both, because Purusha, one person, Abhajat, is worshipped Purusharshaba by the other person. Yes, and Prabhupada mentions here the conclusion of that is that the best person amongst all people engages in the service of the Supreme Person. One Purusha is worshipable, and the other Purusha is the worshipper. Yes. And if ever the one Purusha who's meant to be the worshipper, if ever that one Purusha becomes confused somehow and thinks that he or she is one with the other, the big Purusha, then as Prabhupada says here, simply becomes bewildered and falls into the darkness of ignorance. Yes, but otherwise, all these Purushas are eternal. Prabhupada refers to Bhagavad Gita chapter 2, verse 12, famous verse, that both you and I here and all the kings, we were all here before in previous lifetimes. And in the future we'll be here, at least in the world, again. We will continue to be present in the future as individuals also. Of course, people, the impersonalists, they like to interpret Bhagavad Gita in impersonal ways. But that verse, chapter 2, verse 12, makes it, it's not easy to avoid the point that the people being referred to in different lifetimes, they are individuals. And they, in the following lifetime, in the previous lifetime they were also, now they are, and they will continue to be in the future. Of course, the impersonalists have become expert at twisting things, juggling words, and all that sort of thing, to try and make the point that actually there are no persons and everything is impersonal. But if we study things carefully, then we see that in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna on a number of occasions says, even extremely clearly, that we're individuals and we were and we will be. Yes. So the two Purushas never lose their respective identities. And therefore, we engage in the service of the Lord perpetually. Yes. And, so therefore, such an important point. It's just really extremely important that we should really try and cultivate the mood of service. There's all different types of moods we can develop in Krishna consciousness. The kirtan mood, the japa mood, maybe the prasadam mood, and so on, and the pujari mood, and the preacher mood. But the underlying point, or the underlying mood, is a mood of service. Because advanced devotional service means, it does mean that whatever Krishna wants us to do, we do it. We don't just do it, but we do it extremely happily and become just extremely absorbed in it. Whatever it is. And, one day or even 1 hour, it may mean you are pot washer, and an hour later or minutes later, you may be a presenter of Krishna consciousness, preaching, explaining things. And it's not like a contradiction. And on the advanced level, the devotee will not think that, okay, well, I'm preaching, that's very good. Now they want me to wash the pots, and that's not so good. The devotee will be ecstatic all round. Yes, so that devotional service, Brahma Bhuya Kalpate, it's never considered a material activity. It never is a material activity. And as long as the devotee, Prabhupada quotes Bhagavad Gita chapter 14 verse 26, Mam chiyo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatichaitan brahma bhuya kalpate. One who's engaged in full devotional service, and the way Prabhupada translates it here is unfailing in all circumstances, but more often than not you'll find in our Bhagavad Gitas that Prabhupada translates that without falling down, and does not fall down under any circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. So our engagement in devotional service, even now, even today, just this very day, whatever you're going to do in devotional service, that engagement, you in that engagement, can be considered liberated. As long as your engagement is unfailing, or you don't fall down under any circumstances, you're already to be considered, and it would be more or less offensive, or at least wrong, to consider that what you're doing and your engagement at that time is not liberated. Because not liberated, what does not liberated means? It means material. That's what it means. There's not like a third state, really, where you're doing something which is considered devotional service, but it's not, and being not, it's not material, if you get the idea. Yes, it's never considered a material activity, and when you're doing your devotional service, you're acting on the Brahma Bhuta platform, and therefore you're already liberated. Even though it may not feel like it, or you don't really understand it or appreciate it so clearly, but effectively that's definitely the case. And therefore, in order to come to the liberated stage, Prabhupada quotes or cites 4th Canto, chapter 30, verse 20, you don't need to practice any other service. I'll just read that verse. Always engaging in the activities of devotional service, devotees feel ever increasingly fresh and new in all their activities. the all-knower, the supersoul within the heart of the devotee, makes everything increasingly fresh. This is known as the Brahman position by the advocates of the Absolute Truth. In such a liberated stage, Brahma Bhuta, one is never bewildered, nor does one lament or become unnecessarily jubilant. This is due to being in the Brahma Bhuta situation. So devotees, try and keep that in mind when you're doing your service today. What service are you doing today? Drama. Oh, helping her. Well, that's elevated devotional service. Remember that. Don't just think that, I have to do this for her just because. But it's devotional service. It is. Hare Krishna. Any comments, questions? Raghunath Bhattaprabhu, any comment? Throw some light on these subjects.
Maharaj, is there deity worship in the spiritual world? Like,
there is.
It,
Oh yeah. Nanda Maharaj, Mother Yashoda, they have an altar at home, and on the altar is Lakshmi Narayan. And all the Brijbasis, in a sort of religious sense, they're devotees, worshippers of Lakshmi Narayan. They love Krishna, but it's not that they generally put him on the altar. They just love him and serve him actively in their regular activities. So if you're a pujari, when you wake up in Goloka Vrindavan, first time, they'll probably hand you arati paraphernalia and say, come on, let's go and worship Lakshmi Narayan in a formal sense. Is that okay?
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Of course, cooking goes on. Cooking is, a very important activity. And cleaning goes on, and herding cows goes on, and etc., etc. Srila Prabhupada Ke